and we have dramatic demand. Just on the commercial side, I'll meet less than 5% of the production I have for commercial buyers for produce in this state for local. We had a company contact us the other day that was like, well, I'd like to have vegetable byproducts to make dog food. Well, I don't have any byproducts. I would love to get to where I could have byproducts, but there's a lot of room for growth. We have the system we have, and we have to work with it. And if we use those basic principles of the economy and nature, and everybody tries to narrow that better, it'll all get better. And we just have to make those steps where we can along the way. But, the other option of this is we need to diversify our production. We really, really do. And that's one of our, I've never met a successful business that didn't have a diversified revenue stream. And one of the things we've done is eliminate that diversification on the farm side, and we've got to get that back in there so we're not dependent upon that one crop or that one product or those 2 or 3, but 5 to 10 different sources coming in there, and not farms off the jobs on the farm. The biggest contention we have to this vegetable production is its labor. Well, isn't that a job? So, as we look at this, there's a long way to go, and all that comes to the core of affordability. That allows you to make the money to pay for the food. You grow the food. It's all part of it. You can't just say, well, we have this price. How do we support this price and everything else? We've got to build whole systems that support the community, the resources, and the life amongst them.
Okay, one last question and a brief answer. Oh, I'm sorry.
That raises a question, though, that I have on that. And we've talked a lot about the supply side, but we haven't talked about the income side. And now there's questions about raising the minimum income. And is that going to really help? Are the people going to use those funds in the best way to alleviate food problems and gain more food security?
Sometimes it just raises the minimum price.
Well, I think particularly with your comment about vegetables and fruit, when they're using probably low-wage people and they raise their wages, is that really going to translate out into the price of the crop?
I think
and
from a
eventually
technical standpoint, when FSMA, the Food Safety Modernization Act, comes into play, we're going to see that level out pretty easily, because you're going to have the same regulations abroad that you have domestically for all the fruit and vegetable production, and that's going to level it out pretty quick.
And make it more affordable?
If more people here are able to grow it and make living and put more revenue onto the revenue side, yes. If people can make a living, if we can quit using that, if we can use that energy here to create wealth, absolutely, because it puts more into the supply side on the revenue side. We can't have a constant view
Sandy?
of the world that we're all just going to have less all the time. We got to figure out how to grow more again.
Yeah.
I think because we don't grow as much, sometimes we forget what it takes to grow something.
And of course, one of the wild cards would be that people would choose, how people choose to make their purchases, how they choose to use the wages they have. And so it's it gets back to the university and consumer education as well.
All right, I'm going to call on Mary for one final question, and I hope a brief question and brief answers.
Well, actually, I've really enjoyed this panel, and I wanted to thank all the panelists because I think it's been really interesting and intriguing. And I think I want to make a plug for coming to the last panel, which is a wrap-up panel, because I think there's a lot of stuff here that we can put with the other panels and talk about. And to that, I guess this is not going to be brief for the panelists, but it's a brief question, because basically every single person talked about context in terms of ecology and community. Jerry talked about it in terms of the rural versus the urban consumer. There's the subsistence that you were talking about, Jerry. Charlie talked about it. So this context is really important, yet when we're talking about good food systems, one of the things we wanted to do was define good food and try to get to some universal principles. And I guess, how do we balance that tension?
Is that one to chew on for a couple weeks?
Donna's waving the sheet at us for some reason.
She wants people to fill out the handout, jot down thoughts, questions, and so forth. Seeing nobody jumping at that question, I think maybe it's one we will hold on to Write down on your forms, think about it. We'll address it in that last panel in particular. Meanwhile, I'm hoping there's some good food awaiting us in the back of the room, and I invite you to share refreshments with us. Thank you all for coming. Next week's panel on FAIR will be at the same time, next Tuesday, 3:30 to 5, in this room. I hope we'll see many of you then. Thank you all.